What's up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. My name's John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, today we are talking about Terrace Marshall and how he fits on this Carolina Panthers football team, right? So we're going to look at the offense. We're going to look at where he fits on the depth chart, all of these things, just break it down, what to expect from him statistically, what to expect from the Carolina Panthers offense as a whole. I have a lot of thoughts here. Let's get right into it. First, let's at least talk about what my thoughts about him were pre-draft. All right. So coming into the draft, I considered him a guy who is a checks the box player, right? I thought he could play inside or outside because he did it. He played on the outside a lot this past year, but in the 2019 season when LSU won the championship, he was your big slot receiver and he performed that task very, very well. So he can do it all. To me, there were no major flaws to his game. I thought, like I said, he's a checks the box player. He can do everything really, really well. And when you look at the skill chart here, I'm just going to put that up just for a second. This is what I made for all of the rookies that I do draft profiles on and that I look at. It's just a good way of breaking down his skills. And when you look at this, I'm not going to run through the entire chart, but it does a good job of representing my feelings on the player. These grades are out of 9, but my scale, almost every category is either good or elite, right? A 4.5 and up is a good grade, and an elite grade is 7 and up. So all of these grades are to very good to elite. So it just shows you overall what I thought about the player. He was my 5th ranked wide receiver in this class. Fell a little bit farther than I expected to at the bottom of the second round. He certainly did, but apparently there were some injury issues and other things that went into that I wasn't aware of, and I don't know. That's, I think, the biggest reason why he fell. He was certainly a guy that I thought had a chance to go, late first to early second, and falling to the back end of the second round was certainly a surprise. But here we are, and I think he lands in a really, really good spot for a number of reasons that we're going to get to. And Marshall falls into a really, really unique situation where he doesn't have to be the guy. He has guys around him. You look at the Carolina Panthers team last year, it wasn't good, right? As many pieces as we can talk about, the offense last year struggled. They ran the 7th fewest offensive snaps in the NFL, and a lot of that was because they had the 7th worst in third down conversions. They were the 5th worst in red zone touchdown percentage. They were the 7th worst in fourth quarter points per game. They had a fairly on average pass run ratio, but overall the passing game of the Carolina Panthers last year was not special. It struggled, and I would argue the biggest reason that it struggled is Teddy Bridgewater. I've going back and watching just under half of the games that Teddy Bridgewater played in that Carolina offense. The two things that I really came away from was he struggled with downfield accuracy consistently, and he consistently passed up the bigger play that maybe would have been a tighter window or tougher throw, things like that, for the check down, right? And it definitely limited the production that you could have seen from their wide receivers, that production that we could have seen from that offense as a whole, if Teddy would have been either able or willing to take more shots, be a little bit more of a downfield thrower in general, right? I think that could have helped them out a lot. While this is not a video about the quarterback situation for the Carolina Panthers, it's tough to talk about Terrace Marshall's impact on this offense without first mentioning the improvement that I am expecting with Sam Darnold under center. I expect a quarterback that will be less afraid to take shots down the field and far more capable of getting everything the defense gives him on a particular play. So with the assumption that Darnold is a net positive for this offense and will automatically improve some of those numbers that we talked about earlier, let's talk about how Terrace Marshall factors into this offense. And the first thing we have to do is put up the depth chart here and break down what to expect. Obviously, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson are ingrained as the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 on this team. Robbie Anderson coming from the Jets last year, reuniting with Sam Darnold, by the way, and really showed himself to be a legitimate threat in this Joe Brady offense. But overall, you have a really good 1 and 2, and they brought in David Moore in the offseason to presumably be the 3, but Terrace Marshall was there at the back end of the second round, and I think the value there was just too good to pass up. So Terrace Marshall will have to beat out David Moore for that third string wide receiver job, right, to get onto the field. And while it's no small task to beat out David Moore for the job, that's kind of the assumption that I'm going into this video having, right? I do assume that he will win that. Now, David Moore, good player from the Seahawks, but not a guy that I would have ever considered, you know, an impact guy by any means. And you look at Terrace Marshall as the guy who certainly should be given every opportunity to win that job if he is the better player, which again, I'm assuming he's going to be. I'm recording this, you know, near the beginning of the summer, so it's fair to make some assumptions here with how training camp and how the depth chart is actually going to play out. So with that being said, you look at what Carolina did last year. 66% of their offensive snaps did come with 3 wide receivers on the field, variety of formations and things that they ran, but 66% of the time they had 3 wide receivers on the field. So right off the bat, you can expect him to be on the field 60 to 65% of the time. I would assume, again, assuming he wins that starting job and gets that third receiver spot, which I do expect. Now onto the biggest part of why I am so excited about Terrace Marshall on this offense, and that's Joe Brady. The connection to Joe Brady and Terrace Marshall has been mentioned a handful of times. I'm going to do it again here. Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator for the LSU Tigers in that 2019 season when they went and won the championship, right? Now Terrace Marshall reunites with him. And when you look at the Joe Brady passing offense, it's a spread concept that attacks every level of the defense, and with some combination of a short option route, shallow cross, and a deep post or fade route, right? So it's some combination of that. So you can expect that a lot. This team, I do believe, is going to incorporate a lot of passing into this offense. That's what Joe Brady wants to do. He wants to throw the football. He wants to utilize the running back a whole lot. And Christian McCaffrey, of course, is going to be a big part of that offense. But we are specifically talking about the passing game for the Carolina Panthers in this video specifically, right? And these concepts are utilized in a variety of formations and dressed up in different ways that keep the fairly simple scheme from getting stale. And the cool thing about how Terrace Marshall fits into this, and really cool thing about the 3 top receivers that they have, is they can really run any route. Terrace Marshall can stretch the field, and Terrace Marshall can, you know, be a very good, you know, slot to intermediate to short range wide receiver. He's very good at both of those things. And DJ Moore proved it last year that he can do it. Robbie Anderson, as we obviously know, he can stretch the field, and we saw last year that he can pretty much be a weapon at every level of the field. I believe right now this offense has 3 wide receivers that they can line up anywhere on the field, and Joe Brady can do just about anything he wants with these 3. Now, obviously, Joe Brady's going to have the expert knowledge of what exactly each wide receiver does really well and what perfect situation that he can put each player in to succeed. But I do believe there is a very, very real opportunity for variety for each one of these players. That's why I'm expecting a pretty good rookie year. And with that being said, I think Terrace Marshall specifically will be utilized in 3 key ways on this offense, specifically in his first year. Now, the first way being, most importantly to me, the intermediate to short range, he will be very good with. They will utilize his quickness and toughness in the shallow cross, in the option routes, to get him open quickly and be that kind of second or third option, that check down option in this offense. That will be a big part of what he's asked to do. I do believe that he will be used deep down the field to be the 50-50 ball. I believe personally he is comparable to anybody else on this roster as maybe the best true 50-50 contested catch wide receiver. He did it a lot in college. I thought he was very, very good at high pointing the ball, very, very good with his body control, very, very good at bringing the ball down with people around him, people draped all over him, all of these things. I thought that was a very big part of his skill set and something that they will absolutely use him in. And with that being said, they are going to use his size and body control in the red zone. The red zone was a serious issue last year. 7th worst in getting touchdowns in the red zone. And again, that's not just the passing game. That is the lack of a Christian McCaffrey on the field. That is a Teddy Bridgewater being there for the majority of the season, that obviously, that hinders you a little bit. And we're hoping Sam Darnold we can be improved. We're hoping that Christian McCaffrey can be healthy. All of these things obviously are going to help that overall number, but I do believe Terrace Marshall will get a handful of, hey, fade route, 50-50, one-on-one, can you bring the ball down? And honestly, I believe he can. I really do. I think that is a real skill set for him, and I think he will have that opportunity to do that. Another aspect of his game that I would not be surprised to see Carolina use is I wouldn't be surprised to see him utilized in the inside as the big slot. Carolina used tight end Ian Thomas as the slot receiver a ton last year, and his inability to separate was an issue in my opinion. After going back and watching the film, I thought he struggled to separate, and I was kind of surprised the amount of times the offense just used him as a wide receiver when I thought he was, certainly limited. While Terrace Marshall proved he can play outside in college, his most natural position was on the inside. I could see him replacing an Ian Thomas in that role, as Marshall would be an instant upgrade. And now, I'm not calling Marshall a tight end by any means. I'm specifically talking about the times that the offense put Ian in the slot, made him a big slot receiver on certain downs, and he was running routes. He was not lined up on the line. He was not playing tight end in those sets, right? That's specifically what I'm talking about, all right? I'm putting Terrace Marshall in that slot receiver position to be your big slot as opposed to tight end. So don't hear what I'm not saying there. I just want to be clear on how I'm saying that they could utilize him. I think that's a very, very real possibility and a very big opportunity for Terrace Marshall to be an instant upgrade on the offense and get a lot of balls thrown his way. And really the best part about Marshall's fit into this offense is his ability to do a lot of different things. It's the variety of which all three of the main wide receivers that they have are going to be utilized, right? So any formation, any personnel grouping, they're going to be able to pretty much do whatever they want. And when you look at what Joe Brady was able to do in LSU, what he learned in New Orleans a little bit as well, was a lot of creative screens, wide receiver screens, bubble screens, running back screens, a lot of creative ways to get the running back the ball in space. Oh yeah, you have a pretty good one to do that. And then a lot of different route combinations that are honestly about the same. Like I said, not the most complex scheme. It's just about how they dress it up and how they maneuver it and the usage of it versus zone and man. And obviously I didn't get into any of that in the video, but it is really interesting the way they combine their routes, and with the way that they are building their offense, they have three different guys that can do all of the things that this offense will ask them to do. They can take a bubble screen 25-30 yards for a touchdown. Any three of these guys, Terrace Marshall included, can do that. Any three of these guys can stretch the field. Any three of these guys can obviously run the intermediate to short, shallow cross and be that tough, quick, over the middle type of wide receiver. Any three of these guys can do any number of things. So, and obviously, yes, they're perfect fits. I think the perfect fit for Terrace Marshall in this offense is that big slot role, and this offense specifically can do a lot of things out of that big slot role, and we've seen it from the Saints for years. I've seen it from Joe Brady with LSU and with last year. So we know that it works. We know the tried and true formula. It has a very, very real chance of being special this year. I think they have everything they need offensively just for the Carolina Panthers as a whole to be successful, and then more specifically for Terrace Marshall to be successful. In my draft profile that I did on Terrace Marshall before the draft, I talked about his ceiling being Michael Thomas, right? I thought his best case scenario is he could go in and he could be a Michael Thomas. He has somewhat comparable skill set. Michael Thomas didn't come out of college being like the incredibly crazy explosive guy. He was just a bigger guy with very, very good change of direction skills, very, very good ability to run precise routes and cut it on a dime and do all of these things. He goes into a Saints offense and they use him in a million different ways. Terrace Marshall can be that guy. guy. It's the same offense essentially. And so the comparison that I made pre-draft is kind of full circle right now to where, yeah, that is the best case scenario for Terrace Marshall and for the Carolina Panthers. The best case scenario is you just got Michael Thomas 2.0. That's the best case scenario, and I do think it's a real possibility. I'm not saying he'll be that, but I do think certainly that it is a real possibility. And to me, the Carolina Panthers as a whole are in a huge upward trajectory. I think that all of the stats that I showed, their passing game stats earlier in this video, I think all of those are going to have a huge bump up. I'm expecting big things from this Carolina Panthers offense as a whole. I almost expect them to make the playoffs, especially with them opening up an extra slot, the 17 playoffs on in both conferences. Yeah, I think there's a real chance that Carolina is not only very, very dynamic and very explosive this 2021 season. I think they are a threat, a real threat to every team that plays them. And I think Terrace Marshall will be a part of that offense. And statistically, where does he end up? I do expect him to probably get 500-600 yards and 5 touchdowns year one, right? I think he is sharing the load with enough guys to where, yeah, it's probably not going to be the craziest statistical numbers, especially year one, but I think you're going to have a lot to work with. You're going to see really, really good improvement throughout the year, and you're going to see a plan for how they want to use him, and we're going to see him really integrate into that offense and be a big part of it moving forward. But all right, guys, that is all I have on Terrace Marshall and how he fits on the Carolina Panthers. I hope you enjoyed this. Is a little bit different than what I'm doing. I'm considering making this a little bit of a series throughout the off season here. If that's something that you would be interested in, well, hey, listen, like, subscribe, send this video around. If this video does well, I'll make more of these kind of videos. So I'm hoping people like it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week with some other kind of video, football related. Peace out.